Welcome back to Park Ranger Files. Tonight we're going deep, deeper than you've probably ever gone before. We're talking about the caves of Appalachia, those ancient limestone labyrinths that snake through the mountains like veins through cold stone. Before we begin, if these stories give you chills, do me a solid and hit that subscribe button. And I want to thank you guys. You have completed 1,000 subscribers before my birthday next month. I love you guys. Your help made that dream a reality. Drop a like if you're brave enough to listen all the way through and comment below with your own cave experiences. I read every single one. Story 1. I'm a scientist. I deal in measurable data, core samples, sediment analysis. I don't believe in things that can't be tested, weighed, or explained. Or I didn't. 3 days ago, I was conducting a routine geological survey in a cave system in eastern Kentucky, near the Daniel Boone National Forest. The caves in that region are well known for their complexity. Multi-level passages, underground streams, vertical shafts that drop into nothing. My job was to collect rock samples from various depths to help date the formation and look for mineral deposits that might indicate old mining activity. I've been caving for 12 years. I know the protocols. I had my primary headlamp, 2 backups, extra batteries, a helmet, climbing gear, rope, chalk for marking, water, no emergency rations, a satellite messenger, and a paper map with compass. I'd filed my route plan with the ranger station. I'd told my girlfriend exactly where I'd be and when to expect me back. I wasn't being reckless. The entrance was a narrow vertical drop, about 40 feet down into a limestone chimney that opened into a larger chamber. I rappelled down without issue, boots finding purchase on the slick rock. The air temperature dropped immediately, from a humid 80 degrees outside to a constant 54 degrees. The clammy mineral smell hit my nose, the one that means you're truly underground now, cut off from the sun. The main chamber was beautiful in that stark geological way. Flowstone cascading down one wall like frozen waterfalls, stalactites hanging like stone teeth. My headlamp beam cut through absolute darkness, and I felt that familiar thrill, the knowledge that I was seeing something very few people would ever see. I spent the first hour taking samples, hammering small chunks of limestone into collection bags, photographing formations, making notes. Standard procedure. The cave was quiet except for the distant sound of water dripping and the occasional crack of settling rock. Then I found the side passage. It wasn't on my map. That happens sometimes. Caves are constantly changing, new collapses, open passages, old routes get blocked. But this passage looked old. The entrance was a low crawl, barely 3 feet high with smooth, worn edges that suggested water had carved it over millennia. I should have marked it and moved on. That was the smart thing to do. But I'm a geologist, and unmapped passages are like candy to us. I wanted to see where it went. I got down on my belly and started crawling. The passage was tight, my helmet scraping the ceiling, my pack dragging behind me. I used my elbows to pull myself forward, inch by inch. The rock was smooth and cold under my gloved hands. After about 20 feet, the passage opened into a narrow corridor, just tall enough to crouch walk. That's when I noticed the first strange thing. The walls were scratched. Not natural erosion patterns, not tool marks from old miners. These were gouges, deep parallel lines carved into the limestone, running horizontally along both walls at about waist height. They looked almost like claw marks, but massive. Each groove was 2 inches wide and sank half an inch into solid rock. I stopped and examined them with my headlamp. The scratches were weathered, clearly old, but the pattern was too regular to be natural. I took photos, made notes. Probably some kind of mining equipment, I told myself. Or maybe a geological formation I wasn't familiar with. I kept going. The corridor twisted and descended, getting narrower. I had to turn sideways in places, my helmet scraping one wall and my pack scraping the other. The air was getting thinner too, that stale quality that means you're far from any connection to the surface. I checked my watch. I'd been down for 90 minutes. I could push another 30 minutes in and still have plenty of time to get back before dark. The corridor opened suddenly into a small chamber, maybe 15 feet across. I stood up, stretching my cramped legs, and swept my headlamp around. And I froze. In the center of the chamber, arranged in a perfect circle, were stones. Not natural stones that had fallen from the ceiling. These were stacked, deliberately placed. Flat stones balanced on top of each other in crude cairns about knee-high, forming a ring maybe 8 feet in diameter. Inside the ring, the floor was smooth, too smooth, like something had worn it down over years of, what, pacing? Movement? I felt my skin prickle. Okay, I thought. Someone's been here before. Kids, maybe. Urban explorers. People do weird stuff in caves. Art installations, whatever. It's not that strange. Except the stones were covered in that pale cave dust that takes decades to accumulate. And there were no footprints in the dust on the floor except the ones I was making. No other marks at all, like no one had been in this chamber in a very, very long time. I walked around the circle, examining it. My rational brain was already trying to explain it away. Maybe old mining ritual, maybe geological survey markers from the 1800s. Then I noticed the wall. They were covered in the same scratch marks I'd seen in the corridor. But here they were everywhere. Hundreds of them, layered over each other, gouged deep into the limestone. Some scratches were vertical, some horizontal, some in wild spiraling patterns. The density was highest near the floor, like something had been scraping and scraping and scraping at the rock while sitting or crouching. My headlamp flickered. Just a brief stutter, then steady again. But in that half second of dimness, I could have sworn I saw something move in my peripheral vision. I spun around, heart hammering. Nothing. Just the stone circle, the scratched walls, the darkness beyond my light. Get it together, Sarah, I told myself. You're alone in a cave getting spooked by shadows. This is exactly how people make bad decisions. I decided to leave. I'd mark this location, report it, come back with a team. The smart thing. That's when I heard the sound. It came from somewhere deeper in the cave, beyond the small chamber. A scraping sound, rhythmic, deliberate, like something being dragged across stone. Scrape, pause, scrape, pause. I stood perfectly still, barely breathing, listening. The sound stopped. Then, from the same direction, I heard something that made my blood go cold. Humming. Someone was humming. A melody I didn't recognize, tuneless and droning, echoing through the passages. Hello? I called out, and my voice cracked. Is someone there? The humming stopped. Silence pressed in like a physical weight. Then, very clearly, from the darkness beyond my headlamp's reach, a voice spoke. Sarah. It was my voice. My exact voice. The same pitch, the same slight rasp I have from years of seasonal allergies. Sarah, my voice said again, from the dark. Come here. I felt dizzy. My hand went to the radio on my belt. No signal this deep, I already knew that, but my fingers needed something to do. Who's there? I tried to sound authoritative. Identify yourself. A pause, then my voice again, but wrong this time. The words were right, but the tone was off, like someone doing an impression of me without quite nailing it. Come here, Sarah, I want to show you something. I backed away from the direction of the voice, toward the narrow corridor I'd come through. My hands were shaking so badly, my headlamp beam wobbled across the walls and Then I heard footsteps. Not boots, not the hard click of rubber soles on stone. Something softer, padding, but heavy. The rhythm was wrong, too, thump, drag, like something injured or malformed, struggling to walk. My headlamp flickered again, longer this time, and in that moment of dimness, I saw it. Just at the very edge of where my light reached, something pale moved across the entrance to another passage. It was upright, man-shaped, but wrong. Too tall, too thin, limbs too long. It moved in that jerking, uncertain way, like a puppet being controlled by someone still learning the strings, and its skin, if it was skin, was the color of things that never see sunlight. Translucent white, almost luminous. Then my light came back full strength and the passage was empty. Sarah, my voice again, closer now. Don't leave yet, we're not finished. I ran. I dropped to my belly and scrambled into the narrow corridor, using my elbows to drag myself forward as fast as I could. Behind me, I heard that dragging footstep sound getting closer, echoing off stone. Thump, drag, moving faster than something that awkward should be able to move. My helmet scraped the ceiling, my knees hit rock. I didn't care. I just needed out. Sarah! My voice screaming now, furious. Sarah, come back! The corridor seemed longer than I remembered. Tighter. My pack caught on a low point and I had to wrench it free, losing precious seconds. Behind me, the dragging sound was so close I could hear breathing. Ragged, wet, like air being pulled through a throat full of fluid. I emerged into the main chamber and stood, running now, my headlamp beam bouncing wildly. I found my rope, clipped in with shaking hands, and started climbing. Halfway up, I made the mistake of looking down. In the chamber below, standing directly beneath me, was me, an exact copy. Same gear, same helmet, same build, but the face was wrong. The features were mine, but frozen, expressionless, like a photograph. And the eyes, they reflected my headlamp light like an animal's eyes, bright and empty. It raised one hand, waving. Then it smiled, and the smile was too wide, the lips pulling back too far, showing too many teeth. Come back, Sarah, it said in my voice. You left your samples. I climbed faster than I've ever climbed anything in my life. Arms burning, legs screaming, I pulled myself up that rope until I reached the entrance shaft. Sunlight hit my face like a blessing. I collapsed on the forest floor, gasping, and just lay there for a long time. When I finally looked back at the cave entrance, I saw nothing, just darkness, just the vertical drop into stone. But I could hear, very faintly, carried up through 40 feet of rock, my own voice singing now, that same tuneless melody. I reported it. Of course I did. I'm a professional. I filed an incident report, marked the cave as potentially hazardous, recommended it be closed pending further investigation. The response was frustrating. They sent a team down. 3 experienced cavers with full equipment. They found the main chamber, but they couldn't find the side passage. They looked for hours. According to their report, there was no narrow crawlway, no corridor, no small chamber with stone circles. Just solid wall where I swore the entrance had been. They suggested I'd gotten disoriented. Cave diving can do that, they said. The darkness, the isolation, easy to get turned around, easy to imagine things. But I have photos. I took pictures of those scratches, of the stone circle. When I got home and uploaded them from my camera, I sat at my kitchen table staring at the screen for 20 minutes, unable to process what I was seeing. The photos showed the formations I'd photographed. The limestone walls, the flowstone, the stalactites. All normal. But in 3 of the photos, there in the background, just barely visible in the darkness beyond my flash, a figure, pale and tall, standing motionless, watching me take pictures. And in the last photo I took before I ran, the one where I'd tried to document the scratches on the chamber wall, the figure was closer, much closer. Close enough that I should have seen it, should have heard it, should have known it was right behind me. I haven't been back to that cave. I haven't been in any cave since. My job involves a lot of field work, and I've had to turn down 3 assignments that involved underground survey work. My supervisor's starting to ask questions. My girlfriend thinks I'm having some kind of breakdown. Maybe I am. But I know what I saw. I know what I heard. And I know that somewhere, in the limestone bones of eastern Kentucky, there's a chamber with a stone circle and walls covered in desperate scratches. And something walks those passages. Something that learned my voice. Something that's still down there, singing to itself in the dark. If you're still with me after that one, you're braver than I am. Hit that subscribe button if you want more stories like this. Now let's keep going deeper. Story 2. Told by Jake Morrison, 27, adventure travel blogger. Look, I get it. I'm exactly the kind of person people love to hate. I'm the guy who climbs things with no trespassing signs for Instagram likes. The guy who goes into abandoned buildings and makes the videos with titles like Exploring Haunted Asylum at 3M Gone Wrong. I know what you're thinking. This idiot probably deserved whatever happened to him. You might be right, but I'm going to tell you anyway, because if this stops even one person from making the same mistake I did, then maybe it's worth the comments calling me a fake, an idiot, or worse. 2 months ago, I was in West Virginia driving through Greenbrier County looking for content. My YouTube channel was stagnating. Same old urbex stuff, same abandoned hospitals, same creepy basements that were just dusty and boring. I needed something different, something real. I stopped at a gas station in a town so small it barely qualified for a name. While I was paying, I got talking to the guy behind the counter. Older dude, maybe 60, with the kind of face that spent a lifetime outdoors. I told him what I did and asked if he knew any good spots, abandoned places, weird stuff, anything with a story. He got quiet. Then he leaned forward and said, "You want a real story? There's a cave about 12 miles north called Piper's Hollow, but you don't want to go there." Of course, that was exactly what I wanted. "Why not?" I asked. He shook his head slowly. "People go in. Don't always come out, right?" "What does that mean?" "It means they come out different, or they don't come out at all." He wouldn't say more, but he wrote down rough directions on the back of my receipt. Before I left, he grabbed my wrist, hard enough to hurt, and looked me dead in the eye. "Don't go alone," he said. "And don't go at all." I went alone. I'm not proud of it, but that's the truth. My usual filming partner had bailed on the trip, and I was tired of waiting for other people. I had my gear: GoPro chest mount, handheld camera, drone, headlamp, basic caving equipment I'd used in a dozen other caves. I had water, snacks, and an overconfident attitude that had gotten me through every other dangerous place I'd explored. The cave entrance was exactly where the gas station guy said it would be, at the end of an overgrown logging road that looked like it hadn't seen vehicle traffic in years. I had to hike the last mile after my Jeep couldn't push through the brush anymore. The entrance was a crack in a limestone outcropping partially hidden by rhododendron. Not impressive, not dramatic, just a split in the rock about 4 feet tall. I had to duck to get in. I started my chest mount camera. "What's up, explorers? Jake here, and today we're checking out Piper's Hollow, a cave in West Virginia that supposedly has a dark history. Let's see what we find." God, I sound like such an idiot in that footage. The initial passage was cramped, but manageable. I crouched walked for maybe 50 feet, then the ceiling lifted and I could stand. My headlamp revealed a decent-sized chamber, maybe 20 feet across. The walls glistened with moisture. Water dripped somewhere deeper in. "Nice," I said to the camera. "Pretty standard cave system so far. Let's go deeper." There were 3 passages leading out of the main chamber. I chose the middle one because it looked the largest. That passage descended at a steep angle, forcing me to brace myself against the walls to avoid sliding. The rock was slick, cold. After about 10 minutes of careful descent, I emerged into a much larger space. My headlamp beam didn't reach the ceiling. It just faded into black. The chamber was maybe 50 feet across, with several passages branching off like spokes. I panned my handheld camera around, documenting everything. Okay, this is more like it. Multiple passages, big chamber. This is where it gets fun. That's when I noticed the smell. Rotten eggs. Sulfur maybe, or just dead things decaying in standing water. It was faint, but unmistakable. I'd smelled it in other caves. Usually meant bat guano or organic decay. Not pleasant, but not unusual. I picked a passage at random and kept going. This one was narrower, forcing me to turn sideways in places. The walls here had a weird texture. Not smooth limestone, but rough, almost crystalline. I ran my gloved hand over it, feeling the sharp edges catch. "Interesting rock formation here," I narrated. "Almost looks like, I don't know, dried mud, but it's definitely stone." The passage opened into another chamber, smaller than the last, and there in the middle of the floor was something that made me stop. Bones. A lot of them. I crouched down, filming closely. They looked like animal bones. Long leg bones, ribs, a skull that might have been a deer. They were arranged in a rough pile, like something had dragged prey here to eat. "Okay, so we've got a predator den," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Probably a bear or mountain lion using this cave. That's actually pretty cool." Except the bones were clean. Picked completely bare, no tissue, no fur, and they were old, yellowed and brittle. Whatever had left them here hadn't been back in a long time. I stood up, panning the camera around the chamber. That's when I saw the writing. Scratched into the wall, crude and uneven, were words, "Don't go deeper. Turn back as it watches." My stomach dropped. This was either the best viral marketing for an attraction I'd ever seen or something else. "Well," I said, trying to keep my tone light, "either someone's messing with explorers or this is about to get interesting." I should have listened. I kept going. The next passage sloped downward again, steeper this time. I had to half slide, half climb, using my hands to control my descent. The air was getting warmer, which was wrong. Caves should stay cool. But the temperature was rising, and the smell was getting stronger. The passage ended abruptly in a vertical shaft. I stood at the edge, shining my headlamp down. The shaft dropped about 15 feet into what looked like another chamber below. I could see the floor, slick rock, more bones, and something else. Something moving. I froze, watching. The movement was subtle, a rippling like water disturbed by wind, except there was no wind down here. The floor itself seemed to shift, to breathe. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay, that's probably just a trick of the light." I filmed it. In the footage, you can see exactly what I saw. The floor of that lower chamber moving, pulsing, like something alive. I should have climbed back up. I should have run. Instead, I clipped into my rope and rappelled down. The moment my feet touched the floor, I knew something was wrong. The rock was warm. Not just warm, hot. Through my boots, I could feel heat radiating from the stone. And it wasn't solid. It gave slightly under my weight, like I was standing on something soft, something organic. I lifted my foot and looked down. The floor was covered in a substance I couldn't identify. It looked like stone, but it moved. It rippled and shifted, responding to my weight. And it was translucent. I could see through it into the rock beneath, and there were shapes in there. Twisted shapes, coiled and compressed, like things trapped in amber. "What the hell?" I breathed. Then I heard the sound. From somewhere in the chamber, a wet, slithering sound, like something large moving through water, except there was no water here. Just that hot, breathing floor and the smell of rot. A headlamp beam swept across the chamber, and I saw it. On the far wall, something was emerging. The stone itself was splitting, opening like a vertical mouth. And from that opening, something pale and glistening was pulling itself out. It had limbs, too many limbs, too long, bending at wrong angles. It had a body that looked like melted wax, flowing and reforming as it moved. And it had something that might have been a head, but it was wrong. Multiple eyes, unblinking and black, arranged in a cluster like a spider's. The eyes fixed on me. I felt something in my mind. Not a sound, not a voice, but a pressure, like someone pushing against the inside of my skull, trying to get in. I stumbled backward, tripped over my own feet and fell. My hands hit that soft, hot floor, and I felt it respond. It wrapped around my fingers, warm and wet, trying to pull me down. I screamed. I tore my hands free and scrambled for my rope, clipping in with shaking fingers. Behind me, that thing was moving faster now, slithering across the floor with horrible speed. I climbed, hand over hand, boots scrabbling against the shaft walls. I pulled myself up. Below me, I could hear it, that wet slithering sound, and underneath it, something else. Laughter. Not human laughter. Something that sounded like rocks grinding together, like bones breaking, like screaming filtered through water. I reached the top of the shaft and kept moving, not looking back. Through the narrow passage, through the chamber with bones, through the passage with the warnings. My chest mount camera was still recording, bouncing wildly as I ran. I burst into the main chamber and sprinted for the entrance passage. That's when I heard my name. Jake. My voice, my exact voice, coming from behind me. "Jake, stop, look at me." Every instinct screamed not to turn around, but I did. Standing in the center of the chamber was me. Perfect copy. Same clothes, same gear, same face. But its eyes were wrong. Black and empty, like those clustered spider eyes. It smiled, and its smile split its face too wide, showing too many teeth. "You can't leave," it said in my voice. "You're content now." I ran. I didn't stop running until I was outside in sunlight, gasping and sobbing. I collapsed next to my Jeep and just lay there for I don't know how long. I deleted the footage. I know that makes me a coward. I know people won't believe this story without proof, but I watched that footage once, and I can never watch it again. Because when I got to the part where I'm climbing out of the shaft, running through the passages. In the background of every shot, just at the edge of the camera's view, the thing is following me. Not the copy. The original thing, the one emerging from the wall. It's there in every frame, crawling along the ceiling, keeping pace. And in the final shot, before I exited the cave, right before the camera shuts off, it's reaching for me. One long, pale limb extending toward the back of my head, fingers spread. I haven't been in a cave since. I haven't made an exploration video since. My channel is dying. My sponsors are dropping me. And I can't explain why without sounding insane. But sometimes late at night, I feel it. That pressure in my head, like something's still trying to get in. Story 3. I need to preface this by saying I'm not an outdoorsy person. I don't camp, I don't hike, and I certainly don't go spelunking. My idea of roughing it is a hotel without room service. So when a couple hired me to photograph their elopement ceremony inside a cave in Tennessee, my first instinct was to decline. But they offered to triple my normal rate. And I had rent to pay. The couple, I'll call them Brian and Michelle, wanted something unique, something no one else had done. They'd found this cave system near the Cumberland Plateau that was supposedly gorgeous. Crystalline formations, underground streams, cathedral-like chambers. They'd gotten the proper permits, hired a guide service, the whole thing. It was legal, it was safe, and it was going to look incredible in photos. What could go wrong? The day of the shoot, I met them at the trailhead along with their guide, a guy named Tom, who looked like he'd been born in a cave. Weathered face, calm demeanor, the kind of person who makes you feel safe just by existing. You ever been caving before? He asked me while we geared up. Nope, I admitted. He smiled. You'll be fine. This is one of the easier systems. Nothing technical, no climbing. Just a lot of walking and some tight squeezes. The entrance was a horizontal opening in a cliff face, like a door left ajar in the mountain. We clicked on our headlamps and entered. I have to admit, the first hour was beautiful. The cave was exactly as advertised. Massive chambers with ceilings that soared into darkness. Flowstone that looked like frozen waterfalls, catching our headlamp beams in glowing amber and gold. Pools of crystal clear water that reflected like mirrors. I took practice shots as we walked, testing my settings, my flash. Brian and Michelle were giddy, holding hands, laughing. It was sweet. Tom led us deeper, pointing out formations, telling stories about the cave's history, how it had been used by Native Americans for shelter, how miners had tried and failed to extract minerals in the 1800s, how it had been a tourist attraction briefly before being closed due to safety concerns. What kind of safety concerns? Michelle asked. Tom hesitated. Just structural instability. Some passages are prone to collapse. It's fine now, but back then they didn't have good mapping technology. We walked for what felt like miles, down sloping passages through narrow corridors, across underground streams via natural stone bridges. My legs ached. My camera bag felt heavier with every step. Finally, Tom stopped in a chamber that took my breath away. It was massive, easily 100 feet across, with the ceiling so high our headlamps couldn't reach it. The walls were covered in delicate formations, helictites that grew in impossible spiraling patterns, soda straws hanging like crystal chandeliers, and in the center, a perfectly still pool of water that reflected everything like a mirror. This is it, Tom said, the cathedral. It's perfect, Brian breathed. We set up. I positioned my lights, tested exposures, directed Brian and Michelle where to stand. Tom hung back, giving us space but staying close enough to supervise. The ceremony was short. They'd written their own vows, sweet and personal. I captured it all. The tears in Michelle's eyes, the way Brian's hands shook when he put on her ring, the kiss that echoed softly in the chamber. It was beautiful. Then, as I was taking the final shots, formal poses, the couple standing by the pool with the formations behind them, my camera died. Not the battery, I'd just charged it that morning. The entire camera just shut off. Screen black, no response to any buttons. That's weird, I muttered, checking the battery compartment. Everything looked fine. Everything okay? Tom called. Yeah, just a technical issue. Give me a second. I swapped to my backup camera, a slightly older model I bring for emergencies. It powered on fine. I lined up the shot again. Through my viewfinder, I saw Brian and Michelle smiling at me. And behind them, in the water's reflection, someone else. I lowered the camera and looked directly at the pool. Nothing. Just the couple's reflection and the stone formations behind them. I looked through the viewfinder again. There it was. A figure standing in the water's reflection, where no one was standing in reality. Tall, humanoid, but wrong somehow. The proportions were off. Did you... I started, then stopped. Brian and Michelle were looking at me strangely. Did I what? Michelle asked. Nothing, just thought I saw... Never mind, smile. I took the shot. The flash fired. And in that brief moment of illumination, I saw it. Not in the reflection. Behind them, something tall and pale standing at the edge of the chamber, just beyond where our headlamps reached. Then the flash faded and it was gone. My heart was pounding. Tom? Yeah? Did you see that? See what? I pointed towards where I'd seen the figure. I thought I saw someone over there. Tom swept his headlamp across the chamber, nothing but stone and shadow. Probably just a formation. The shapes down here can look like people sometimes. Your brain tries to find patterns. Maybe, I said, but my hands were shaking. We wrapped up the shoot quickly after that. I took a few more shots, but my heart wasn't in it anymore. I kept seeing movement in my peripheral vision, kept feeling like we were being watched. Tom led us back the way we'd come, or at least I thought it was the way we'd come. After 10 minutes of walking, I started noticing things that didn't look familiar. Have we been through here before? I asked. Tom frowned. This is the main passage. Same one we took on the way in. But it didn't feel the same. The formations looked different. The walls seemed closer. And the air, it smelled wrong. Not the clean mineral smell from before, but something organic, something rotten. We kept walking. After another 20 minutes, Michelle stopped. Tom, how much longer? I feel like we've been walking forever. Should be close, Tom said, but I heard uncertainty in his voice. We rounded a bend and emerged into a chamber I definitely hadn't seen before. It was wrong. The formations here weren't natural. They were too regular, too symmetrical. Columns of stone arranged in rows like pillars in a cathedral. But they weren't supporting anything. They just stood there, purposeless. And carved into each pillar, crude and deep, faces. Human faces, their mouths open in silent screams. What the hell is this? Brian whispered. Tom had gone very still. We need to go back. Back where? Michelle's voice was rising. We don't know where we are. Everyone calm down, Tom said, but I could hear fear creeping into his voice. I'll get us out. I just need to get my bearings. He pulled a map and a compass. We stood there in the chamber of screaming faces while he tried to figure out where we'd gone wrong. That's when I heard it. Click, click, click. Like footsteps, but wrong. Too sharp, too rhythmic. Coming from somewhere deeper in the cave. Do you hear that? I whispered. Everyone went quiet. Click, click, click. Getting closer. Tom's headlamp swept toward the sound. Hello, is someone there? The clicking stopped. Silence pressed in. Then, from the darkness, a voice. Hello, is someone there? Tom's voice, his exact voice, played back at us. Tom's face went white. That's not... I didn't... Hello, is someone there? The voice asked again, and this time it sounded amused. Brian grabbed Michelle's hand. We need to leave. Now. Tom nodded shakily. Follow me. Stay close. We moved quickly, Tom leading us down a different passage. Behind us, that clicking sound resumed. Faster now. Click, 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 echoing off the walls, making it impossible to tell which direction it was coming from. The passage narrowed. We had to go single file, shoulders brushing against rough stone. I was third in line, behind Michelle, my camera bag catching on every protrusion. Michelle screamed. I looked up and saw why. Ahead of us, blocking the passage, a person, standing completely still, facing away from us. Naked, skin so pale, it was almost luminescent. Too tall, too thin, spine protruding like knobs. "Excuse me," Tom called out, voice shaking. "We need to get past." The figure didn't move. Tom took a step forward. "Sir, ma'am, are you okay?" The figure's head tilted, not turning to look at us, just tilting at an angle that made my stomach churn because it went too far, rotated too much. Then it spoke in Tom's voice again. "We need to get past." And it laughed. A sound like grinding rocks, like bones breaking, like nothing human. Tom turned to us, face white as the figure. "Back, go back, now!" We scrambled backward, turning around in the narrow passage. I was in front now, leading them back the way we'd come. Behind us, that laughter continued, echoing and overlapping until it sounded like a dozen voices. We burst back into the chamber with the screaming faces and stopped. Because now the pillars were arranged differently. I know that sounds impossible. Stone doesn't move. But I swear, the formation had changed. The pillars closer together, forming a maze instead of rows. And in the center of the maze, more figures. Dozens of them. Standing motionless, pale and naked and wrong, all facing inward like they were waiting for something. "What do we do?" Michelle was crying now. Tom's hands were shaking so badly his headlamp beam jittered across the walls. I don't know. This isn't possible." One of the figures in the maze moved. Just its head, turning slowly to look at us. Its face was blank. Smooth skin where eyes and mouth should be. But somehow I knew it was looking at us. Seeing us. More heads turned. One by one, all the figures rotating to face our direction. Then they started moving. Not walking, flowing. Their limbs bent wrong, moved in directions joints don't go, propelling them forward in a horrible stop-motion glide. "Run!" We scattered. I don't know who yelled it. Maybe all of us. We just ran, splitting up as we fled into different passages leading out of the chamber. I ran alone, my camera bag bouncing against my back, headlamp beam showing me jagged walls and uneven floor. Behind me, I could hear them. That clicking sound multiplied, coming from every direction. The passage twisted and I followed it blindly, no idea where I was going, just moving because stopping meant being caught. I skidded around a corner and slammed straight into someone. "Michelle." We grabbed each other, both screaming, then realized who we were. "Where's Brian?" I gasped. "I don't know. We got separated. I don't know." Okay, we need to find Tom. He knows the way out." A sound behind us, clicking. We ran together hand in hand like children fleeing a nightmare. The passage opened into another chamber, smaller, dominated by a single massive formation in the center. A column of stone that stretched from floor to ceiling, covered in that strange translucent flowstone. And inside the flowstone, bodies. Preserved, suspended, trapped in the stone like insects in amber. Human bodies, dozens of them. Some old, just bones. Some fresher, still clothed. Faces frozen in final expressions of terror. Michelle made a sound like a wounded animal. I grabbed her arm, trying to pull her away. "Don't look. We have to keep moving." That's when I saw my camera. My primary camera. The one that had died early. It was sitting on the ground at the base of the column. I hadn't dropped it there. I'd put it in my bag. I'd checked. I approached it slowly, every instinct screaming not to, but unable to stop myself. The camera was on. Screen glowing, powered up, ready to shoot. And on the screen, a photo of me, standing exactly where I was standing now, looking down at the camera. But in the photo, I wasn't alone. Behind me, its hand on my shoulder, the blank-faced figure. I whirled around. Nothing. Just Michelle. Still staring at the bodies in the stone. "Michelle, we need to..." She was crying, pointing at one of the bodies. That's Tom. That's Tom." I looked. She was right. Suspended in the flowstone, wearing the same clothes he was wearing today. Tom. Eyes wide, mouth open, one hand pressed against the stone like he was trying to push his way out. "That's impossible," I whispered. He was just with us." "Amanda." Tom's voice calling from somewhere in the cave. "Michelle, where are you?" Michelle grabbed my hand so hard it hurt. "That's not him! That's not him!" The voice called again, closer now. "I found the exit. Follow my voice." We ran. Away from the voice, away from the column, into another passage. This one sloped upward. I felt a breeze, cool, fresh air. I think we're going the right way," I panted. The slope got steeper. We climbed using our hands, scrambling over loose rock. The breeze got stronger. And then I saw it. Light. Not headlamp light. Daylight. Gray and thin, but unmistakably sunlight filtering in from somewhere above. "There!" Michelle sobbed. "There, I see it." We climbed faster, hands scraping stone, knees banging against rock. The opening was small, barely 3 feet across, but beyond it, I could see sky. We squeezed through, Michelle first, then me. I emerged into twilight. We were on a hillside covered in dead leaves, bare trees stretching toward a sky the color of old bruises. Below us, I could see a road, a parking lot, our cars. We'd made it out. We stumbled down the hillside crying and laughing, holding each other up. When we reached the parking lot, my Jeep was right where I'd left it. Michelle's car was there too. Brian's truck was there. But no Brian. And no Tom. Michelle collapsed against her car, sobbing. "We have to call someone. We have to send help." I pulled out my phone. No service. I ran to the road trying to find a signal. Finally, one bar. I called 911. Search and rescue went in. They searched for 3 days. They found the cathedral chamber. They found the passage with the pillars. They found the column with the bodies. Confirmed them as missing persons from over the decades, including 2 from the 1800s and 1 from as recently as 2019. But they never found Brian. And when I described Tom, the lead SAR guy went very quiet. Then he showed me a photo. "Is this him?" It was Tom. Exact same face, same age. "Yes," I said, "that's our guide. Is he okay?" The SAR guy shook his head slowly. "That's Tom Hendricks. He was a cave guide. He went missing in that system in 2001. We found his body preserved in flowstone 5 years ago. I still have the photos from that day. The ones that came out show beautiful cave formations. A smiling couple. Normal, gorgeous shots. But there's one photo that my camera took while I was running. I didn't take it. I never pressed the shutter, but it's there in my memory card. A shot from behind showing me running through a passage. And ahead of me, just barely visible in the frame, I'm running straight toward myself, the figure with its hand on my shoulder. If you made it through that one, you deserve a medal. Or therapy. Possibly both. If these stories are keeping you up at night in the best way, please subscribe. Every subscription means the world. Comment below if you've ever felt like something followed you home. Now, let's keep descending. Story 4. I worked as a research assistant for Dr. Ellen Reeves, a geochemist studying extremophile bacteria in Appalachian cave systems. Basically, we go into caves, collect samples of bacterial mats and biofilms from pools and wet rock, and analyze them to understand how life can exist in extreme environments. It's boring work. Beautiful sometimes, but mostly tedious. Lots of crawling through mud, carefully scraping bacteria into sterile containers, labeling everything, hauling equipment. 3 weeks ago, we got a research permit for a cave system in Virginia, near the West Virginia border. Privately owned land, mostly unmapped, but preliminary surveys suggested extensive passages with significant water features, perfect for our purposes. The team was small, me, Dr. Reeves, and another graduate student named Priya. We planned a 3-day expedition, set up base camp in the main chamber, do daily collection runs, pack out, standard procedure. Day 1 went perfectly. We established camp in a large chamber about half a mile from the entrance. Dry, relatively flat, good airflow. We set up sleeping pads, a camp stove, organized our equipment. Dr. Reeves mapped the main passages with a laser rangefinder, while Priya and I started preliminary sampling. The cave was stunning. Massive formations, underground streams, pools so clear you couldn't see the water until you touched it. We found bacterial mats on several pools, thick, colorful biofilms in greens and oranges. Dr. Reeves was ecstatic. "This is incredible," she kept saying. "Look at this diversity. This could be a completely undocumented ecosystem." We worked until late, ate a quick dinner, and went to sleep. I woke around 2 a.m. to the sound of water dripping. Not unusual in a cave. Water's everywhere, constantly moving, dripping, flowing. But this sound was different. Rhythmic, deliberate. Drip, drip, drip. Always the same interval. I lay there listening, unable to fall back asleep. After about 20 minutes, the dripping stopped, and I heard footsteps. Bare feet on stone. Pad, pad, pad. Moving through the chamber. I sat up, reaching for my headlamp. "Dr. Reeves, Priya?" No answer. I clicked on my headlamp and swept it across the chamber. Both Dr. Reeves and Priya were asleep in their sleeping bags. No one moving. But I'd heard pad, pad, pad. Closer now. I stood up, heart racing. "Hello?" The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then, from somewhere in the darkness beyond our camp, humming. A soft, tuneless melody, like someone humming to themselves while working. "Who's there?" I called louder now. Dr. Reeves stirred. "Kevin, what's wrong?" "Someone's in here with us." She sat up quickly, turning on her headlamp. "What?" I heard footsteps and humming. "Someone's here." We listened together. Nothing. "Probably just water sounds," Dr. Reeves said after a moment. "Acoustics in caves can be weird. Sounds travel funny. Echo from far away." "I know what I heard." She gave me a long look. "Get some sleep, Kevin. We have a long day tomorrow." I tried, but every time I closed my eyes, I felt like something was watching us. Day 2 started normally enough. We split up to cover more ground. Dr. Reeves went to survey a northern passage, and Priya took the western branch, and I went south to document a series of pools we'd noticed on the initial survey. Standard protocol: always tell someone where you're going, always take 2 light sources, always stay in communication range. The southern passage sloped downward, narrow and winding. I followed it for about 15 minutes before it opened into a small chamber dominated by a deep pool. The pool was beautiful. Crystal clear, maybe 10 feet deep, with delicate soda straw formations hanging over it like a chandelier. And on the far side of the pool, footprints. Bare footprints in the soft mud. I stared at them, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The prints were human. 5 toes, distinct arch, heel impression. But they were too large. Size 15, maybe bigger. And the stride was wrong. Too far apart, like whatever made them had legs longer than any human. I photographed them, measured them, made notes. Then I noticed something else. The footprints led into the pool. Not around it, not up to the edge and back. They walked straight into the water, spaced evenly, and just stopped. No prints coming out the other side. No disturbance in the mud to suggest something climbing out elsewhere. Just gone. I crouched at the edge, shining my headlamp into the water. It was deep, but clear enough that I could see the bottom. Rocky, covered in silt. Nothing unusual. And then something moved. Deep in the pool, in the darkest part where my light barely reached, something pale shifted. I jerked back so fast I almost dropped my camera. Just a reflection, I told myself. Just my light playing tricks. But I'd seen it. Something large, something white, moving in water that was supposed to be lifeless. I backed away from the pool, every instinct screaming at me to leave. That's when I heard it again. Humming. The same tuneless melody from the night before echoing through the chamber. And it was coming from behind me. I spun around. The passage I'd come through was empty. But the humming continued. Getting louder, getting closer. I ran. Back through the passage, slipping on wet rock, scraping my hands on the walls. I didn't care about protocol, about samples, about anything except getting back to base camp. I burst into the main chamber, panting. Dr. Reeves and Priya were there, looking at me with concern. "Kevin, what happened?" "There's I couldn't get the words out. Breathe, Priya said. What did you find? I told them about the footprints, the pool, the movement in the water. Dr. Reeves frowned. Footprints? Are you sure they weren't from us? From yesterday? We didn't go down that passage yesterday, and they were huge, bigger than any of us. Could be from whoever owns this land, Priya suggested. Checking on the cave? Barefoot? I shot back. In a cave? Walking into a pool? Dr. Reeves exchanged a glance with Priya. Show us. We went back together. All three of us, headlamps bright, following the southern passage to the pool chamber. When we got there, the footprints were gone. The mud at the edge of the pool was smooth, undisturbed, like no one had ever walked there. Kevin, Dr. Reeves started. They were here. I'm not making this up. I photographed them. I pulled out my camera, scrolling through the photos. The pictures showed the pool, the formations, the chamber, but where the footprints should have been, nothing. Just smooth mud. I don't understand. Priya put a hand on my shoulder. It's okay. Cave environments can mess with perception. The darkness, the isolation. It's easy to see things that aren't there. I'm not hallucinating. No one said you were, Dr. Reeves said carefully, but I think maybe we should call it a day. Get some rest. We can continue tomorrow. We went back to camp in silence. I could feel their concern, their doubt. They thought I was losing it. Maybe I was. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in my sleeping bag, staring at the darkness beyond our camp lights, listening. Around midnight, the dripping started again. Drip, drip, drip. Then the footsteps. Pad, pad, pad. I didn't move. I didn't turn on my light. I just listened. The footsteps circled our camp. Slowly, deliberately, like something studying us. Then, whispers. Multiple voices overlapping, too quiet to make out words. They sounded like they were coming from inside the rock itself, vibrating through the stone. I felt something touch my sleeping bag. A pressure, like fingers pressing through the fabric. I bit my lip to keep from screaming. The pressure moved, tracing up my legs, across my torso, reaching my face. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. Then, right next to my ear, a voice whispered, Kevin. My name. My voice. Like a recording of myself played back. Kevin, wake up. I wasn't asleep. Kevin, wake up and look at me. I kept my eyes squeezed shut. The pressure on my face increased. Something cold and wet, like a hand made of water cupping my cheek. Look at me, Kevin. I opened my eyes. Inches from my face, a face. Pale, translucent, with features that looked almost human but wrong. Too symmetrical. Too smooth. Eyes that were just black holes, empty and infinite. Its smile had too many teeth. I screamed. Dr. Reeves and Priya woke up, turning on their lights. The face was gone. Kevin, what's wrong? I was shaking so hard I couldn't speak. I just pointed at the empty air where the face had been. They looked at each other. And I saw the decision in their eyes. They thought I was breaking down. We're leaving, Dr. Reeves said quietly. Pack up. We're going back to the surface. Now. We packed in silence. Rolled up sleeping bags, stuffed equipment into packs that worked quickly. As we were loading the last of the gear, Priya paused. Do you hear that? We all stopped. From somewhere deep in the cave, singing. Multiple voices harmonizing, echoing through the passages. Not words, just sounds rising and falling in an eerie melody. What the fuck? Priya whispered. Dr. Reeves' face had gone pale. Let's go, now. We moved quickly toward the entrance passage. The singing followed us. Getting louder, getting closer. We reached the entrance passage and started climbing. The passage sloped upward at a steep angle, requiring hands and feet. Halfway up, my headlamp died. Just went dark, even though I'd put fresh batteries in that morning. Shit, I fumbled for my backup light. That one died too. Dr. Reeves, I can't. Stay close, follow my light. We kept climbing. Behind us, the singing reached a crescendo. And then, laughter. Not human laughter. A sound like wind through hollow bones, like rocks grinding, like screaming filtered through water. I looked back. In the passage below, lit by Dr. Reeves's headlamp. Figures. Dozens of them. Pale, translucent, crawling up the passage toward us on all fours. Moving wrong, joints bending backward, heads tilted at impossible angles. And they were all singing, all wearing the same empty smile. "Climb!" Dr. Reeves screamed. We scrambled, hands scraping rock, knees banging stone. I could hear them behind us, getting closer. That wet, dragging sound of bodies pulling themselves forward. I saw light ahead. Daylight, the entrance. We burst out into gray afternoon, stumbling, falling, crawling away from the cave mouth. Behind us, the singing stopped. We lay there in the grass, gasping, crying. When I finally looked back at the entrance, one of them was standing there, just inside the darkness, not crossing into sunlight, watching us. It raised one pale hand, waving. We reported it. Of course we did. Cave system closed pending investigation. A team went in. They found our camp. They found our equipment. They found bacterial samples we'd left behind. They didn't find anything else. No figures, no footprints, no evidence of anything unusual. But they did find something that the official report didn't mention. In the pool chamber, the one where I'd seen the footprints. At the bottom of the pool. Bodies. Preserved in the mineral-rich water. 7 bodies arranged in a circle. All positioned looking upward. All with the same expression. Eyes wide, mouths open, hands reaching toward the surface. Like they'd drowned trying to get out. Or like something had held them down. I quit the program. Changed my major. I work in IT now. Nice, safe, no caves. But sometimes, at night, when I'm alone, I hear it. That tuneless humming. And I feel something cold and wet touching my face. Whispering my name in my own voice. Asking me to wake up. Asking me to look. Story 5. Told by Jennifer Walsh, 42 SAR volunteer. I've been doing search and rescue for 15 years. Cave rescue for 8. I've pulled people out of vertical drops, talked panicked cavers through tight squeezes, administered first aid in passages so narrow I had to work lying on my side. I've seen broken bones, hypothermia, panic attacks, so severe people had to be sedated. I thought I'd seen everything. 4 months ago, we got a call about a missing caver in a system in West Virginia. Solo caver experienced had a satellite beacon that activated in distress mode. The beacon was transmitting from deep in the cave, about 3 miles from the entrance and 800 feet down. Solo caving is stupid. I don't care how experienced you are. Something goes wrong and you're alone, you're dead. But we don't leave people in caves. The team assembled fast. 6 of us, all experienced cave rescuers. We packed technical gear, medical supplies, extra lights, communication equipment. The plan was to locate the victim, assess injuries, stabilize, and extract. Standard procedure. We entered the cave at dawn. The first 2 miles were straightforward. Well-traveled passages, some climbing, nothing technical. Then we reached the descent. An 80-foot vertical drop into a narrow shaft. We rigged ropes, checked our harnesses, and descended one by one. The shaft opened into a passage that continued downward at a steep angle. Wet rock, slippery, tight in places. We moved carefully, calling out to each other, staying in contact. After an hour of descent, we picked up the beacon signal. Strong, pulsing regularly. We were close. "Hello," our team leader Frank called out. "Search and rescue, can you hear me?" No response. We kept moving toward the signal. The passage opened into a small chamber. And there, lying against the wall, the missing caver. Male, maybe 30, wearing full caving gear. He was conscious, sitting up, watching us approach. "Hey," Frank called. "We're here to help. Are you injured?" The man didn't respond, just sat there, staring. We approached carefully. As we got closer, I noticed something wrong. His gear was clean. Too clean. After 3 miles of cave and 800 feet of descent, his coveralls should have been caked with mud. They were spotless. "Sir?" Frank knelt beside him. "Can you tell me your name?" The man blinked slowly. Then he smiled. "I'm not injured," he said. His voice was flat, emotionless. "I'm waiting." "Waiting for what?" Frank asked. "For you." Frank exchanged a glance with me. Possible head injury, confusion. Hypothermia can make people say weird things. "Okay," Frank said gently. "We're going to get you out of here. Can you stand?" The man stood up smoothly, too smoothly. No stiffness, no pain, like he hadn't been sitting on cold rock for hours. "I can stand," he said. "I can walk. I can do anything you can do." The way he said it made my skin crawl. "Great," Frank said, maintaining his professional calm. "Let's head back. Stay close, follow our lights." We started back the way we'd come. The missing caver walked behind us. His footsteps were wrong. Too light, too even. I kept glancing back, and every time I did, he was staring directly at me. Not blinking, just staring. After about 30 minutes of climbing, one of our team members, a guy named Ryan, stopped. "Hold up," he said. "I need to check something." He approached the missing caver. "Sir, I need to look at your beacon. May I?" The man didn't respond. Ryan reached for the beacon clipped to the man's harness. The moment Ryan touched it, the man's hand shot out and grabbed Ryan's wrist. "Fast! Too fast!" Ryan yelped. "Hey! Don't touch!" the man said, still smiling. Okay, Frank intervened. "Let go of him. It's fine. We won't touch your gear." The man held Ryan's wrist for another moment, then released it. Ryan backed away, rubbing his wrist. "What the hell, man?" We kept moving, but the atmosphere had changed. Everyone was tense now, watching the missing caver warily. We reached the vertical shaft and started rigging for the ascent. "All right," Frank said to the missing caver. "We're going to clip you into a harness and haul you up. Have you done rope work before?" "Yes," the man said. "Great, this will be easy then." We clipped him in, attached the haul system. Ryan and another team member started pulling from above, while Frank and I guided from below. The man ascended smoothly. Too smoothly. He wasn't using his feet to walk up the wall. He was just hanging there, being pulled up, but his body was rigid, not dangling loose like someone on a rope should, completely stiff, like a mannequin. He reached the top and disappeared over the ledge. Frank and I exchanged another look. "Something's not right," I whispered. "I know," Frank said. "Let's just get him out and hand him over to EMS. Not our problem after that." I ascended next. When I pulled myself over the ledge, the missing caver was standing there, waiting, staring at me with that same unblinking gaze. "Could you move back a bit?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Give me some room?" He took one step backward, exactly one step, then stopped, still staring. Frank came up next, then the rest of the team. We continued toward the surface. The closer we got to the entrance, the stranger the missing caver became. He started mimicking us. When Frank cleared his throat, the missing caver cleared his throat a second later. When Ryan adjusted his helmet, the missing caver adjusted his helmet in the exact same motion. When I shifted my weight, uncomfortable, the missing caver shifted his weight. It was like he was learning, studying us. We finally reached the main chamber, less than half a mile from the entrance. Frank called ahead on the radio. "Base, this is Team 1. We have the subject. Conscious, mobile, but behaving oddly. Request EMS standing by at entrance." The radio crackled. "Copy that, Team 1. EMS is ready. What's his condition?" Frank hesitated. "I'm not sure. Just have them ready." We moved into the final passage. I could see light ahead, daylight filtering in from the entrance. The missing caver stopped walking. We all turned to look at him. He was standing at the edge of where the darkness met the light, about 20 feet from the entrance, just standing there, perfectly still. "Come on," Frank called back. "We're almost out." The man didn't move. "Sir?" Frank took a step toward him. "Are you okay?" "I can't," the man said. "Can't what?" "Go there. He pointed at the entrance. At the light, Frank's face creased with concern. Are you photosensitive? Eyes hurt after being in the dark? No. The man tilted his head and the movement was wrong, too far, too mechanical. I can't go there because that's not where I belong. My blood went cold. What do you mean? Frank asked slowly. The man's smile widened, too wide. The corners of his mouth stretched past where they should stop, revealing too many teeth. I belong here, he said, in the dark, in the deep, in the stone. Then his skin started to shift. It rippled, like water disturbed by wind. The pale color darkened, became translucent, and underneath I could see nothing. No muscle, no bone, just emptiness, like looking through colored glass into a void. Back up, Frank said quietly. Everyone, back up slowly. We moved backward toward the entrance, never taking our eyes off the thing that was no longer bothering to look human. Its limbs elongated, joints bending backward, its face smoothed out, features melting away until it was just a blank oval with those terrible eyes, black and reflective, like pools of oil. Thank you, it said, and its voice was no longer one voice, but many, overlapping, echoing. Thank you for teaching me. Teaching you what? I whispered. How to be you. It smiled again, and this time the smile split its face in half. Then it turned and walked back into the darkness. Not the awkward, jerking movements from before. It walked smoothly now, naturally, like it had been practicing. Like it had learned. We stood there, frozen, until we couldn't see it anymore. Then we ran. We burst out of that cave into daylight and just kept running until we reached the vehicles. EMS was there, waiting, confused by our panic. Frank tried to explain, tried to tell them what we'd seen. They thought we'd experienced mass hallucination, carbon dioxide poisoning, shared delusion from stress and isolation. But we knew what we'd seen. They sent another team down to investigate. The beacon was still transmitting, still pulsing from deep in the cave. The team went down, found the chamber where we'd found the thing. The beacon was there, sitting on the ground. Alone? But there were marks on the wall, scratch marks, like something had been practicing. Practicing movement, practicing gestures, practicing being human. And in the dust on the floor, footprints. Lots of them. Different sizes, different treads, all leading deeper into the cave. Like whatever was down there had made copies. Like it was collecting. The real missing caver? They found him 3 weeks later, 2 miles from the cave entrance, on the surface, wandering along a forest road. He had no memory of going into the cave, no memory of activating his beacon, no memory of the past 4 days, but he was intact, uninjured, perfectly normal. Almost. His family said he was different when he came home, quieter, watching people more, like he was studying them. And sometimes late at night, they'd hear him in his room, humming that same tuneless melody. I quit SAR 6 weeks ago. I couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't go into caves knowing what's down there, what's watching, what's learning. But here's what keeps me up at night. That thing knew my name. I never said it in the cave. None of us used names, just called each other by sight. But when we were leaving, when we were almost to the entrance, I heard it from deep in the darkness behind us. My own voice calling out, Jennifer, Jennifer, come back. I need to learn more. And I swear it sounded exactly like me. Conclusion? So there you have it. 5 stories from the deep places, the dark places, the places where stone has memory and something ancient still crawls through the bones of mountains. Are they real? I've got emails from people claiming they were there. I've got coordinates that match real cave systems. I've got photos that I can't explain and recordings that sound like nothing on Earth. But here's the thing about caves. They don't care if you believe or not. They're still there, still deep, still dark, still waiting. The geologist, Sarah, she sent me an update 2 weeks ago. She's teaching at a university now, hasn't been underground in months. But she says sometimes, when she's alone in her office late at night, she hears it through the ventilation system. That humming. Her own voice singing in the dark spaces between the walls. Jake, the urban explorer, his channel is dead. Last I heard, he moved to Arizona, to the desert, as far from caves as possible. But he still feels it, he says. That pressure in his head, like something's trying to push its way in. Amanda, the photographer, she won't look at the photos from that day, has them locked in a folder she can't bring herself to delete. But sometimes she gets friend requests on social media from people with no profile pictures. And when she clicks on them, the accounts were created from cave systems. IP addresses traced to hundreds of feet underground. Kevin, the research assistant, he checks himself every day. Looks in mirrors, records his voice, measures his reactions, making sure he's still himself. Making sure nothing came back with him. And Jennifer sees them now. In crowds. People who move just slightly wrong. Who watch others just a little too carefully. Who smile with too many teeth. She thinks they're walking among us. Learning. Waiting. If you've made it this far, you're either braver than most or you really love Nightmare Fuel. Either way, I appreciate you. Hit that subscribe button if you want more stories from the deep places. Stories from rangers, from cavers, from people who've seen things in the wild that can't be explained. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more content that'll keep you up at night. Drop a like if these stories got under your skin. Comment below with your own cave experiences. But maybe think twice before you do. Maybe some stories are better left untold. And if you're thinking about going caving, take a buddy, take extra lights, take a way to call for help. And if you hear something that sounds like your own voice calling from the darkness, don't answer. Don't look. And for the love of God, don't follow it deeper. This has been Park Ranger Files. Stay safe out there. Or better yet, stay on the surface. The caves can wait. They've got nothing but time.